Good evening, everyone. We're here at the council meeting of April 18th, 2016. We'll start with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Laurenti. Here. Wright. Here. Weifenbach. Doyle. Here. Estes. Here. Lewis. Here. Drew. Here. Roberts. Nordstrom. Here. Scott. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go on to the invocation. We have tonight Julie Norwood, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness, your kindness, your mercy, and your grace. And Lord, as we begin this order of business for the city that you have allowed us to be a part of, God, we pray for your wisdom. Lord, from the youngest to the oldest, this city needs a quality of life, Father, that we can bring to a certain extent. But Lord, only you can fulfill us to our capacity. So God, bless these men and women who selflessly sacrifice their time to serve the people of this city. We pray, God, that your will would be done in Jesus' name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you, everyone. And now we're on to the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes, or can we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Estes and second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Now on to awards and recognitions. Can we have Ole Lasgard come forward, please? In partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, we're pleased to present the April 2016 Veteran of the Month recognition to Ole Lasgard. Mr. Lasgard was born April 2nd, 1974 in Rapid City, South Dakota. He graduated from Central High School in 1993 and joined the South Dakota National Guard, in which he served honorably for 20 years. He retired in January of 2014 at the rank of Staff Sergeant. Lasgard completed his basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. He was trained and utilized as a combat engineer for 5.5 years, and then changed his specialty to military police. Lasgard attended a combat lifesaver course and a warrior leadership course, which was followed by a deployment to Afghanistan from 2007 to 2008 in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. During his military career, Mr. Lasgard was decorated and awarded with the Army You're supposed to be the nervous one. With the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, Army Good Conduct Medal, Army Reserve Components Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, a Reserve Component Overseas Training Ribbon, Armed Forces Reserve Medal with M device, the NATO Medal, and Sharpshooter Medals for rifle and pistol. While serving in the National Guard, Mr. Lasgard was employed with the Pennington County Jail for 14 years and currently works for Eagle Sales in Rapid City. Ole married Yvette Snyder on September 16, 1995. They have one son, Eric. In Ole's free time, he likes to hunt, fish, and read. He also likes to volunteer by helping children with special needs. Mr. Lasgard has been serving our community since 1993 with dedication and sacrifice, making him an excellent Veteran of the Month. His example of service makes him deserving of this honor, and we would like to extend our gratitude. Thank you, Ole Lasgard. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'll send this with you. So, let's stand over here. Would you like to say something?
No.
You can. Talk as long as you like. Let's stand over here and get a picture together. Thank you for your service. Okay, now we're on to general public comment. A time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken on the meeting, at the meeting on any item not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. Tonight we have one speaker request form from Sandra Schwan. You can approach the podium, and you have a 3-minute time limit.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. I'll be very brief. I don't really actually have a concern. I just want to make you aware of an event coming to Rapid City. I did email the council last week to make you aware of it, and a number of the emails bounced back at me, and I resent them, so hopefully you did get them. If you did not, I apologize for that. The event is the Great Race, and it is coming to Rapid City on June 23rd, and they contacted me in February of this year and asked if we could coordinate the Great Race with Summer Nights, since they would be coming to town on a Thursday. And they selected a Thursday night because of our event downtown. The drivers like to arrive in town and feel like there's some fanfare and some excitement about the event. And so partnering them together makes it for a great event for their team and ours as well. Since that time, we've been working with the CVB and the Rapid City Police Department and, of course, the Great Race team to make sure that we can work all of this out and make the logistics work for our downtown and make sure that we don't have any danger to the public or our driving public. On that night, the June 23rd, there will be an opening ceremony in downtown. The event finish line will be at the intersection of Mount Rushmore Road and St. Joe, with the finish line coming across St. Joseph Street. The cars will come down 8th Street because they're going to go through the Black Hills, Neals Highway, and come north on 8th Street and turn right onto St. Joe. We will have a number of volunteers in place to help put the cars in their parking spots, greet all of the contestants, and make them feel welcome in our city. And I just want to make a note that this is an endurance race, and it's not a timed race. They're not going to be racing down 8th Street to be the first one there. They will start arriving at approximately 5:30, and it will probably take almost 2 hours for all the cars to arrive, because they have to be spaced at a specific rate. If they come too early, they actually lose points. So we shouldn't really have any traffic problems with the cars coming down 8th Street, because they'll be spaced a few minutes apart, and there'll be approximately 100 cars that arrive. Everyone that we've worked with at the Great Race has been extremely professional, organized, and willing to work with us in any things that we need to do to adjust for the event. It's also important to note that the navigators and the drivers, along with their pit crews, number about 450 people, most of which will be staying at the Rushmore Plaza Holiday Inn. And in most cities, when they arrive for their evening event, they dine at the Civic Center, Convention Center, what have you. But because of our great downtown, they're going to dine in our downtown. We're going to give them maps of where the restaurants are downtown. Destination Rapid City has agreed to help us make those, and we will greet them, give them a map, and let them loose in our downtown to explore, shop, and spend their money. It's been 20 years since the Great Race came to Rapid City, and if you went to their website and looked at it, you'll know that they actually vote on the best city that they went to that year. So I'd like us to make them feel welcome, and hopefully they'll vote for Rapid City. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Sounds like a great event. Now on to non-public hearing items, items 2 through 44. There are no speaker request items on these, so we'll go straight to the consent items, items 2 through 36. And looks like we have some people to remove these items, some of these items. We'll go to Charity Doyle.
Items number 28 and 29, Mayor, please.
Jerry Wright.
Item 34.
Steve Laurenti.
Item 55, please.
Okay, so then can we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 28, 29, 34, and 55? Oh. 55 was the, okay, never mind 55. A motion without 28, 29, and 34. Is there a motion? Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving that consent calendar, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. All right, I'm on to item number 28, Charity Doyle.
Want to have Amanda read it in?
Okay. Alderman Scott, could you read in 28,
Thank you,
please?
Mayor. Item number 28 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a contract for the construction of public improvements through a private developer for tax increment district number 76. I'll yield the floor.
Okay, we'll go to. Is there a motion on this item?
Not at this time.
Moved to approve by Lewis and a second by Drew.
That's okay.
We'll go to Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's too late for debate, but I did want to say, as I did the first time, I'm going to vote no. Listen, I believe in TIFs, tax increment financing as a tool. I just think it got too rich up here on this corner. I think we gave the farm away. And, you know, to pay for the entire cost, you know, if we were going to pay for a lane or oversize on the water, you know, the traffic signals, I'd have been all for that. But to pay for the entire cost, and when I see letters go out that say that, you know, well, we'll get it sooner, and I'm trying to figure out, well, how does that math work when we're going to spend $3.1 million on it and 2.3 in finance charges? How much sooner are we going to get this development to make that pencil out? And anyway, I've said enough. I would have supported it if it had been like for some upgrade costs or whatever, but this is just too much. Thanks.
Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just wanted to kind of echo some of Alderman Estes's comments, but wanted to additionally say that, you know, with these, if you're a believer in these TIFs and that private developers need them for development to happen in Rapid City, which I don't agree with, in this particular corridor, especially all the way down to Walmart, I mean, we have TIFs. We have a matter of, 4 TIFs now, I think, in a matter of maybe a half a mile, might be a quarter of a mile if you measure it. But if you believe that TIFs are necessary for development, then one should believe that we would we restrain ourselves in that we would plant the seed for development in a particular area in Rapid City, like we have over there, except what we've done is we have populated almost every development in that entire corridor with a TIF, which is, in my opinion, goes right down the road of what Alderman Estes just said, which is the fact that that corner is, there's no part of that corner that's blighted. In fact, that entire corridor over there is highly sought after for the future and also for what's already there. So the seed's already been planted, and we've just overdone it with TIFs, so I won't support it. Thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve, and let's go straight to a roll call vote on this one. Heidi?
Doyle. Estes. Lewis. Drew. Nordstrom. Scott.
No.
Laurenti. Wright. Wyffenbach. Motion passes 5-4.
Okay, now we're on to item number 29.
Item number 29 is to forgive the note for the soccer fields in the sum of $550,000. I yield the floor.
Charity Doyle.
I need to abstain, Mayor.
Okay. Sorry, Ron. Ron Wyffenbach.
Move approval.
Okay, motion and a second. Now we'll go to Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. I have had some time to think about this particular issue, and I initially supported it. However, after thinking about it and the fact that we have supported this particular Vision Funds project well beyond its initial commitment, which we're all aware of, and I've supported those because it's a very good vision project, I just believe that in this particular case, we're going into waters we have not gone with the Vision Fund. We have not done ever, we have never created a loan for a Vision Fund project. It's never been done. And sounds like we may be breaking another precedence, which is to then forgive that very same loan, which has never been done. And in this particular case, the people who applied for this Vision Fund project didn't ask for it to be forgiven, which is the part that has really been grinding in my mind. This was something that came from the city government saying, well, you know, we should do this. And so I believe that the taxpayers have invested, I believe, to the tune of about $4 million in this particular Vision Fund project. It's going to be great for Rapid City, and I think that the Vision Fund has done more than enough to make sure that this is going to be successful. And I just won't be able to support forgiving this loan, which was going to help maybe for some future projects for the next round, because the unspent money from this last round will just move forward to the next. And I believe there are a whole lot of projects that are waiting that will be of great benefit to the city, that we could use these funds to fund those particular projects. So I won't support the forgiving of the loan. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Jerry Wright.
I'm trying to check my memory on this, but I believe there was discussion originally when they petitioned this that we were almost willing to pay for it, but we weren't sure where our cash was, and so therefore we went to a loan instead until it was clarified. I think that was truly what happened. And I believe now that we have found that we do have adequate funds in the Vision Funds to pay cash, that we could forgive, and it could have done the cash out to begin with. And I think that's how I remember it, and I believe I'm going to vote. Thank you.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. From Legal and Finance meeting last week, we had a very good discussion, and it was summarized that the Chief Financial Officer did indicate that this loan money was coming out of undesignated cash for the Vision Fund, and that it was not going to jeopardize any of the other projects in the last 5-year plan that covered 2011 through 2015. This does not dip into the 2016 funds for the Vision Fund, and as just to reiterate again, because I was very concerned that it didn't jeopardize any of the existing projects that are currently still within that 5-year plan. But with that said, on Wednesday, I did not vote against this at that time because the money was there. But in all full disclosure, my phone was ringing off the hook this weekend. And I had a lot of my constituents remind me that when we had this discussion, as Alderman Wright indicated, it was a good discussion at the time. We didn't know where the vision funds were, but the Soccer Association, or the people that came forward for this loan, said that they could raise the money, that they could pay it back, that they wanted to make a good faith effort on this loan. And I was reminded of that from my citizens in my ward, Ward 4. And so I will not be supporting this at this time tonight. I will be voting no. Thank you.
Okay, Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting this effort tonight. And I did meet with these folks, and I would think that by giving them this money to complete the lights, that I'd encourage them to continue to raise money, because where we get in the weeds on a lot of these projects is in operational costs after the facility or event center, whatever it is, after it opens, then a lot of things come to light that they have to pay for that they not necessarily have thought about. Another reason I'm going to support this is I do believe this is where vision funds really do some of their best work, when it's a public-private partnership. And also, soccer is kind of an equal opportunity sport. There's lots of girls and boys that do this, and so often we build facilities that really do happen to be male-dominated. So I can support this from the girls' perspective. I also think that it might be good for other uses as we look towards the wintertime. You know, I'm not a winter sport person, but, you know, maybe you can learn to cross-country ski, snowshoe. There's lights there, things like that. Maybe it can also serve as a lacrosse field or maybe even volleyball fields. So I think it could be multi-purpose, and I also encouraged the group to think of it in that way. So thank you, and I will be voting in favor of this.
Okay, Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to hear some of the discussion because I'm the one that brought this forward, and there's perfect reasoning for bringing it forward. And I think Alderman Wright had touched on some of them when they were looking at where they're going to go with this vision fund, how are they going to finish the fields. There was a little bit of question on where the vision funds would go for. There's this doesn't affect the vision fund in any way, shape, or form, other than the fact is that they won't be returned of $550,000 that this note. When the note originally came up, I wanted to stop that at that time. It was suggested by this council that I do not do that. Now it's suggested that I do not forgive the note, because we would have stopped the production of the fields, the lights from being put up. I was on the council. This is one of the few projects that was vetted through the citizens of our community. The Vision Fund was set up for projects that otherwise would not happen. This fund was set up for that. This soccer field was vetted through that process. Did they get a rocky start at first? Absolutely. But they were also looking at a $13 million project at the time. This project came in at $6 million. The soccer people have put in about $2 million into it. I don't know of any other vision fund that has done that. The reason the loan happened and they didn't ask for forgiveness was because all the time frame that they had spent vetting this process. The soccer people got stuck with a piece of land that I vehemently fought against that piece of land being put there. There was added cost. Just for the water alone was $1 million in added cost to this property. Not to say what else they've faced out there. If you go out to the soccer fields now, you'll see that it's a huge asset out there. This is a city asset, and I hope to think that people will remember this. After this initial expenditure happens, there will be no other cost to the city, unlike swimming pools, which I think our Horseman pool, if I'm not mistaken, is over $7 million. Started out about half that. Our leisure pool is about $7 million. Started out over half that. None of these questions were ever risen to them when they wanted to finish their project. I have yet sat on a council when they have started a project that was vetted by the same people that are paying the bill. I'm not sitting up here giving this money to any big corporation or anything like that. The Soccer Association is hundreds of little kids and hundreds of adults that pay a good percentage of the same money that they just requested the fields to be built. If we didn't want to finish the project, we should have never started the project. If we saddle them with this debt into the future, the maintenance on the fields will eventually, it'll be tougher for them to make. Do they have the donations, the pledges to make it go? Yeah. But I'm telling you, if you've been to these fields, you understand what they're up against on some of the obstacles with the land that they were put on. This group of people was not at the beginning of the vetting of this process. I was. And I sat for hours and hours and spent hours trying to convince them this is not the best place to go. That's not the people of the council. So that was my idea to bring this forward, just to finish the project and take the taxpayers in the future off the hook and to allow little kids affordability when it comes to playing soccer. We don't want to stop these kids or their parents from playing soccer. They're the same people that are paying these taxes. They're not some corporate giant out there that's going to take advantage of this. It's a good project. It was vetted by the people, just like the process was set up. The only difference is we didn't finish it. This will finish it. This will bring closure to it and take the burden off the kids in the future, which is the right thing to do. I'm not sure how else to approach this other than the fact that this is the same people that pay these taxes. That's why I brought it forward. That's why they didn't bring it forward. I was there from the beginning. They weren't. I was. And somehow this piece slipped through the cracks. I had no knowledge that it had gone this far without just being finished. Thank you.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if I just recall the conversation about this when the loan was brought forward, I think part of it was the fact that soccer has raised $2.2 million or something like that, but a lot of it's in the form of pledges that come in on an annual basis, and therefore they didn't have as money up front to do some of these lighting and get it done with on time as they had anticipated. Everybody correct me if I'm wrong on this. So the idea behind the loan was to get the project done so it could be used right away instead of waiting another season to get the money. So they actually have raised the money to do it, and it was never their intention to do anything but pay it back. But I think Alderman Weifenbach just made a really good gesture from the city that I think shows that if you raise a lot of money, we're willing to help you out, and now that money will be used to other things, we need other improvements. This is ultimately a city park, folks. We are taking care of it, and the city's responsible for it in the future, and I think it's an amazing project. I'm really glad I've been part of it, and I'm proud of all the work we've done up here to support it. Soccer is a huge economic impact to this community, as well as just affecting the lives of families and children and youth, and I think it's just a really positive thing for us to do, and another one of those good steps we can take to show people that, you know, if you want to do business in Rapid City and if you want to raise the money and bring forth a project, we will support you. So thank you very much for your support, sir, and I appreciate your efforts, Mr. Weifenbach.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been really struggling with this one to figure out which way to vote on it, and I thought I had a resolution yesterday, as a matter of fact, supporting my vote on last Wednesday when I made the vote to send this to council. Since then, I've been struggling with it on the fact that these folks have had the loan for about 2 months, and now we're going to forgive that loan. And I would rather have that opportunity to see if they could raise the funds to get some of that offset before we do the forgiving part. Everyone here has given some good rationale for their position, and I appreciate that. But I'm in the same position as Alderwoman Scott that got phone calls, emails, et cetera, on this issue. And so therefore I'm going to be listening to the voters of my precinct, or excuse me, my ward, and we'll just have to see what other conditions we can make out of this. And then the other factor that I'm interested in is that I'm willing to pledge some of my own money towards the soccer field. So if I can convince the rest of the people that are voting no on this to even put a little pledge into it, and that means the constituents in my ward, if they are adamantly opposed to this, then I'm going to ask them to make a pledge to the foundation as well. So at this point, I have to go along with what the voters of my ward are saying. Thank you.
Okay, back to Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess I've gotten phone calls and emails too, but that doesn't mean I'm going to change my mind just because a few people don't agree with it. I mean, the overwhelming support is for this. Obviously, there's a lot of soccer players out there, but there's also just a lot of people in this community that are pro-economic development. you always hear from the loudest, most vocal in minorities a lot of times, and I don't think that's going to influence my vote and doing what's right, in my opinion, anyway. So, everybody's got their opinion about how we should do this, but I'm going to stick with what I originally said. I think it's the right thing to do, and I think it shows a good precedent for the city. And I hear, well, you got to get equal forgiveness for everybody. Someone said about the ASA softball fields. I'm like, we didn't lend them any money. We just gave them money. Same thing with the hockey. We just gave them like $300,000 or $200,000 for new water line. We support all the sports in this town. This is nothing unusual for us to do this. It just happens where it's unusual that these people raise this amount of money and they didn't have it all in the bank at once. But it will be there. I just think that allows them to get it more. So get the project farther down the line. Thank you.
Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure 100% where I stand on this. I've supported every up to date. I don't have the history a lot of you guys do with this project and the Vision Fund and stuff. And when asked to support the loan in February, I everything that the hockey people have asked for, I've supported to date, and I have a little uncomfortable feeling about forgiving a loan that I was asked to support in February. And then I watched I streamed the Legal and Finance meeting, and I appreciate everybody that asked the questions there, because that answered everything I needed to know, and so then I came here tonight ready to support it until I read a few of my emails, and but and then I thought, well, maybe we should look, it's 5 payments, I believe, of $120,000. I thought, well, maybe we could forgive it on an annual basis as we see how our money comes, but that's a horrible cash management position to put the club in my mind. And then you look at the fact that, yeah, this was vetted. This is vetted, the whole project as a worthy project in the 2015 the round. I guess that would be between 2010 and 2015, that 5-year set of projects. And as I look at this as a whole thing. I mean, like I say, I have the least background, and as I look at all the stuff, when the vision projects that come forward, like in 2010 for that 5-year period, we've supplemented everybody because construction costs have gone up. I mean, it doesn't matter what project you're talking about, the stars are lined up and they're all over. And I do agree with Laurenti, or Alderman Laurenti, excuse me, it's money that could come back. It would be money that would come back in 16, 17, and we're going to have a new round of money. So, I mean, money's money. And, but if we don't spend this, then it goes forward. I mean, it's spent. I mean, the money's spent. It's just a matter of whether we get it back. So, I'm still here deciding. So I guess I'll yield, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind the council that we learned on Wednesday that this is undesignated cash from the Vision Funds. Is that correct, Pauline?
That was the original funding source, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion on the table is for approval. Let's go to a roll call.
Estes. Lewis. Drew. Nordstrom. Scott. Laurenti. Wright. Weifenbach. Motion passes 5-3.
Okay, thank you. Now on to item 34. Under bid award, item number 34, city staff recommends referring the Harder Addition 12-inch water main abandonment back to the April 26 Public Works Committee meeting. Very right.
Thank you, Mayor. I make a motion that we award this project to the second lowest bidder based upon bid document irregularities in the bidding package submitted by the apparent low bidder.
Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. Brad Estes.
I just appreciate Alderman Wright pulling this and the Deal Tech bringing it to our position, and with the background I come from, I guess this is the right thing to do in my mind. To me, it's the only thing we can do, and I hope you guys support this. Thanks.
Jerry Wright.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this is the right thing to do. It's a horrible thing to have a contractor lose a bid because he forgot a document. But if we don't, I think we're setting a terrible precedent for future bids, because the bid document is what secures the sincerity and ability and willingness of the contractor to enter into the price that they lay forward. So we need to take this choice to protect our integrity. Thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the second highest bidder. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry. Motion on the floor is to approve to whom?
I reread my motion as the award to the second lowest bidder based upon bid documents, irregularities in the bidding package from the parent low bidder. And I believe the second bidder is Mainline.
Okay, that's the motion. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. That takes us through consent items, and now on to non-consent items, items 37 through 44. There are no speaker request items on these, and we'll go straight to ordinances. Item number 37, Alderwoman Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 37 is a second reading of ordinance number 6111, an ordinance to change the terms and powers of the Rapid City Regional Airport Board by amending sections 2.72.030 and 2.72.070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code as amended for second reading. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item number 38 is the first reading of ordinance number 6103, an ordinance to amend certain provisions concerning digital signs, sign credits, and spacing of off-premise signs by amending section 17.50.080 and 17.50.090 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item number 39 is the first reading of ordinance number 6107, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Nooney and Soleil for David C. Rogers and Patrick R. Kiefert, personal representatives of the estate of Irma F. Rogers, for a rezoning from General Commercial District to Office Commercial District for property generally described as being located at 16E Philadelphia Street. I make a motion to approve.
Motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item number 40 is the first reading of ordinance number 6109, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Stanley Design Group for Rapid City Parks Department for a rezoning from Park Forest District to Public District for property generally described as being located at 626 East Fairmont Boulevard. I make a motion to approve.
Motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item number 41 is the first reading of ordinance 6110, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of the Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by AE2S for Village at Skyline Pines LLC for a rezoning from Office Commercial District to General Commercial District for property generally being described as located at 1050 Fairmont Boulevard. I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, on to CIP committee items. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 42 is request by Fire Emergency Management for funds to replace siren boxes. Mr. Mayor, if I may make the motion to spend from the general fund undesignated cash up to $66,192. And I can stand for a correction on that amount, but that would be my motion is that we spend up to $66,192 from the general fund undesignated cash.
Second.
Okay, can we clarify general fund? Are you talking CIP general fund or the general?
No, that'll be the council general fund, and if I may defer to Pauline Sumption as finance officer for a little better clarification on this. Essentially, what we've got is a lot of factors coming into play with this, and we may have to call up Dustin Willett to make a little bit more presentation, but if I can start off with Pauline.
Okay,
first.
Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This request came before the CIP committee, and with the last memo that was attached, it was brought up that each of the sirens only cost $4,300, which is below our threshold of $5,000 for capitalization purposes for the equipment, and so CIP would not be an appropriate funding source based on those reasons, and so the recommendation was to bring it forward to council to use the undesignated cash from the general fund for the city's portion of that.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second for that, and we'll go to Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, what had happened is when the emergency management, Dustin Willett took that over years ago, he inherited a civil defense system throughout the county that's pretty antiquated. I mean, it was clear back in the Boeing missile days, I believe, and he's had issues with trying to get parts and pieces, and when he calls the manufacturer, they say that doesn't even exist anymore. And so he's gone through Sheriff Tome, and now then Chief Moldavern, and we've Chief Carl, you're involved in that also, but they said do whatever you got to do to get it fixed countywide, and Dustin has worked with Wall and other towns in the county, and he's applied for a grant, and what he came up with was the sirens within the city limits of Rapid are about $90-some thousand, or $92,000 or whatever, and once you apply our share of the grant, it come up to about $66,000, and we learned that CIP that this dollar amount doesn't qualify for CIP, so we came to the council. Now, the reason it's up to $66,000 is because there's a difference of opinion, but we haven't even had the conversation with Pennington County yet as to whether or not that 66 should be split in half between the county and the city. So it could be as low as $33,000. It depends upon the interpretation of the agreement, and like Pauline had said at the meeting, this is one of those agreements that the city and the county has that it's kind of been a gray area, and it doesn't get reconciled at the end of every year. So hopefully we will learn that to come out of this is that line item or that group of expenses have to be reconciled between the city and county every year. And we want to be careful to say that, just in the name of safety, we're not going to throw whatever money, but the number is between 33 and 66, and I think we all want to have a working, up-to-date sirens, horn, and notification system in our city. And B, as Alderman Wright had brought up, I think there needs to be training and education for people that when these new sirens do go off, that people know who to tune into and where to turn, because we've gotten to be, in my mind, a society that when the fire alarm goes off, people go, well, nobody leaves the building anymore. And so I think if we spend this and we have the new system, that there should be some public training as to where to tune into so people know what to do. So I will yield. Thank you.
Okay, Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the efforts of the EMS. This is simply a no-brainer for me that this is something that city government should provide as the safety and health and welfare of the community. I can remember back, and I'm not sure what year it was, and maybe one of the chiefs can recall, but when we basically kind of reformulated the EMS with the county and the city, and the partnership that we have now is probably the strongest that I've ever seen it. We've been through a couple of pretty good situations in the city, and the response has been just great. I can't thank you guys enough. I think this is something that is if we could identify anything that we should be doing as council people, this is one of them. So thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to remind everyone that the reason that one of the reasons why we can't do it from CIP is that this is a maintenance and repair item. It is not a capital item, and it doesn't meet the thresholds as our finance officer recommended to us, is that the equipment is for replacement of equipment is $5,000, but this upgrade is $4,300 for each unit as an average. So that's the reasons why it doesn't make the CIP thresholds. And after the meeting was concluded, or that item on the agenda was concluded on the CIP, is why we recommended that this come to the full council for consideration. And that's my motion, is to up to $66,192. Yield.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if my question's for Richie or Pauline, but when do we know if the county's going to pay for half of this? Or it's just out there in the ether, whenever they feel like it? Or do we have any clue? Do we think they're going to do this? Or just...
Dustin might be the best one.
Okay, Dustin's going to come up? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Dustin Willett, Rapid City, Pennington County Emergency Manager. To answer your question, fair question and no good answer. This happened late last week at CIP, so in my mind, things were going pretty copacetic up until that meeting, and then we ran into a very legitimate snag. There is a commission meeting tomorrow, but all the deadlines for getting things onto that agenda had long since passed. So the soonest it will be on the county commission agenda will be in 2 weeks. And I can't predict what the outcome of that will be. I think the joint powers agreement is clear in how it says those costs should be equitably divided between the two entities. But I don't have a crystal ball. I can't speak to exactly what that outcome will be.
Okay, well, I'm going to vote in favor of this because I think public safety is paramount, but I just kind of wanted to know where the county stood on this.
I think the agreement is clear, so it's just a matter of finding those funds.
Thank you.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to touch on Darla's question, the reason this came to CIP is because originally the units were all looked at together, so the 21 units were all added up. However, just by definition of what CIP goes through, if one unit can be replaced and it has that monetary limit, it has to hit $5,000 before it qualifies for CIP. So since each one could be replaced individually, it didn't qualify, and that's why it's back here. One of the questions that was posed at CIP was, is this, do our emergency management people, the guys that, keep the public safety on their shoulders all the time, feel that this is, one glitch away from preventing a warning from going off? And the answer was yes. So I guess my take is, yes, there's an agreement in place, and there are some questions, interpretive questions on that. However, if we have the funds to go ahead and get that done and then fix the language and split the costs on the other end, that would be the smart thing to do so that nobody is left unwarned. Thanks.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's the total cost on this project again?
$66,000.
Okay, we just spent $550,000 in the soccer field. I think we can afford it. Just throwing that out there for everybody. It's for something public safety. So just wanted to make the point.
Motion on the floor is for approval of item number 42. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 43.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 43 is Minaloosahan Senior Center roof replacement, and I'll move to acknowledge the request from Minaloosahan. And if I can get a second, I'll explain a little bit further.
Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge the request and a second. And go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Part of the rationale is that staff believes that they did the actual inspection of the roof up there, is that there's a lot of, I think there was 5 or 6 different specific items that were able to do with minor repair work. And if the Minaloosahan Center can approach that first and address those minor maintenance issues on it and fix those items, staff believes that the roof still has approximately 10 to 20 years life, and I can be standard corrected on that as well, but the roof still has about, the remainder portion of the roof has about 20 years of life yet to it. So if the Minaloosahan people can address some of the specific items on the maintenance or repair, we can help them out. Thank you.
Okay, John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did speak to Rod Johnson about this a little bit, and it was my understanding that the city was going to take care of the repairs. I haven't seen this list of 4 or 5 minor repairs yet. I have seen some fairly major repairs. When I had someone come out and take a look at it, I would appreciate seeing these minor repairs that Minaloosahan is supposed to do on it, because I know that Minaloosahan's budget is very limited, and what's minor for the city may not be minor for Minaloosahan. So, you know, with our total capital outlay budget of less than $10,000 and the city's being millions and millions of dollars, I think there might be a little difference between what's minor for one group and what's minor for another. So I would appreciate seeing this, and thank you very much.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello? Okay. This was another one of those items that was sent to CIP with very good intentions, because it was sent to CIP as a full roof replacement, which would befall the city. However, based on the lease agreement with this facility, maintenance does befall the people who hold that lease. So when our city engineer looked at this and said that this was really more of a maintenance issue, not a roof replacement issue, that's when it then no longer fit CIP. So I hope that makes sense. And if anyone else has questions, I think Pauline has some more probably eloquent feedback on the contents of that contract.
Jerry Wright.
I believe that the discussion at the CIP and the members that were there could add or correct me on this, that we were to direct back to the Minaloosahan Center that they would get up to three quotes for the repair of the existing damages to the roof versus a complete replacement, get a total dollar amount and bring it back to us. We look at it then and determine what we had to do. I believe that's the correct discussion.
Brad Estes.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, John, I'm not a roof expert, but when Mr. Johnson reported at CIP, and he took an architect along with him, and they took the pictures and stuff. I guess they convinced us at the CIP that the roof had just maybe met its half-life, so there was half-life, and it was more of a flashing and some incidental things. So it took it out of the realm of being an entirely capital improvement issue, and it became a repair and maintenance issue. So therefore, we had really no choice from the capital, from CIP, to bring it back to the council. I don't know that any of us have totally closed the door on assisting on some repairs and maintenance, but it had to leave CIP at that point in time. Thanks.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion would be to have someone bring forward a plan that explains how this could be fixed. I see the pictures, but I'm not sure about the plan. I mean, there's got to be a plan to fix it. I think that if they know, if they've went over there and they've seen what's wrong with it, can they just tell us what needs to be fixed and how to fix it?
You making a substitute motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe that was a motion on it. I was looking at the pictures.
Motion is just to acknowledge the
Yeah, that would be a substitute motion.
request. Okay, substitute motion to have staff bring back a plan for fixing the Minnelusahan, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Motion on the floor. And that motion dies.
I'll second. For discussion, I'll second it. Want to comment?
Okay, we have a second then on the motion. So the new motion on the floor is to bring back a report. Hold on, were you done speaking, Alderman Weifenbach? Guess so.
Speaking.
Now we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Mr. Dale Tech a question or two concerning the current motion on the floor?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Mr. Tech, it seems to me that if we send this back to staff, for staff to come back and bring back a report, that it would be delaying the repairs. What is your opinion on having staff work in a recommendation?
I believe the report that Rod Johnson and Jerry Eisenbraun put together, which is linked to the agenda, identifies the majority of the issues that are causing the leaks on the roof there. I don't know that any additional reports necessary. Going down the road possibly of getting just repair quotes would be maybe the most prudent thing to do. I believe the issues are identified of what's wrong with the roof.
Thank you, Mr. Tech. And just to further add on to Alderman Estes' discussion from CIP, and Mr. Roberts, just so you know, because you're the liaison to the senior center, the discussion at CIP, this took it out of the realms of CIP, and so what the discussion was is that we had other funding sources to potentially help them, but at this point, since it's not in the realm of a full roof repair, and just to clarify Alderman Nordstrom's lifespan, what I heard and what I recall is that it has about 8 to 10 years, not 20 years left on that roof. It's 8 to 10 years, but again, it was only in half life and there was still a lot of life left in that roof. So instead of replacing the whole roof, if we could get some quotes, or if Minnelusahan Senior Center could get some quotes on what it would take to just make the repairs identified in that report, bring it back to council if their budget cannot handle the repair quotes that it is, that we would see if we could find the money in some other, either it's undesignated cash out of the general fund, or we would try to find some other source, since it does not fit the criteria for CIP. Thank you. I yield the floor.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having trouble with the mic. So far, I only have one quote on the repair. I didn't get more because I had talked to Rod Johnson and I thought it was going down that direction instead of us doing this. Right now, the one quote that we have is right at $20,000 to have it repaired, which is twice as much as our capital improvement budget and the money that we've saved over who knows how many years. So we are going to need help, and hopefully the city will pay for this. Because even with help, if we deplete all of our funds, we're back where we were 2 or 3 years ago with the center with no money in the bank again. And it's kind of hard to run anything without any money. It's unfortunate that this roof got to where it is, and that's one of the things that we need to do is we need to go through the agreement that the city has with Minnelusahan, and we need to specifically outline what the Minnelusahan is responsible for and what the city is responsible for. Unfortunately, the Minnelusahan has not had the resources over the years to have a maintenance person that has the knowledge to do repairs and even the knowledge to know what they would need to do up on that roof. You know, when you have somebody on staff for minimum wage at 15 to 20 hours a week because that's all you can afford, and as far as I know, we've never had a maintenance person that's even been up on the roof. Anytime we get somebody on the roof, it's a subcontractor that's doing work on the HVAC system or whatever. But that roof, if you read in here, it's got a 25 to a 30-year lifespan, is what Rod Johnson said. It was put in 1998, so it's almost got 20 years in it now. And it's had very hard years, if you look at the roof up there. But I have no problem whatsoever if the city wants to spend $20,000 to repair this roof. It just needs to be done. This is a city building. It's been leaking in different parts of the building for multiple years now, I guess, from what some of the seniors are saying down there. I've only been on the board I've been their liaison for a few years and on the board itself for 6 months. And being a city building, I just hate the fact that there's damage being caused to it constantly with these leaks coming through the roof. There's 5 or 6 specific leaks in that building now. And part of the big problem is due to the poor flashing construction, and that's the majority of the cost of the repair, is redoing that. And that's one of the things that the roofing contractor mentioned when he gave the quote, was to replace that is probably 70 to 80% of the cost of it, but that will all be torn off and can never be reused if we have to have a new roof put on in 5 years. So I'm just saying $20,000 to repair it for 5 years or $100,000 to replace it for the next 30. So thank you very much.
Mr. Roberts, for clarification, you received a quote on the roof pertaining to the items that the photographs
I did.
depict? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And I can give 2 more.
Thank you. Okay, going back to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking to the motion on the floor right now is that to come back with a plan. I believe we already have the plan, and it's already in the link that is attached to tonight's agenda. And one sentence out of 3 paragraphs here, it appears that these leaks can be remedied with flashing modifications, patching, and proper maintenance. If those 3 items can be addressed first, before we start taking any additional action on this, then I'd be a little more comfortable with it. And the pictures are attached to tonight's agenda as well. And there is 6 items. 2 of are of the same issue, and they demonstrate very well of what the real issues are. And if the Minaloosahan can be able to send someone up on the roof to do those minor maintenance first, to do those adjustments, then I'll be willing to take a look at other. But the biggest thing is those 3 items that I just mentioned. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And now we're on to Jerry Wright.
To simplify it, if we can make a friendly amendment to this, rather than the plan, that we get 3 informal quotes in compliance with our local policy and state law, informal quotes, and bring them back to do the appropriate repairs to the roof, and we could take action then.
Okay, well, if I'm hearing right, that's essentially the same thing. The next step is to get a couple more quotes, and then we have our plan.
But rather than a plan, we're going to get quotes and make a decision, yes.
So substitute motion or not?
Friendly amendment is fine.
Okay, the new motion is to get 3 informal quotes for Minaloosahan roof, bring back to this city council for action.
Thank you, John. That's all I need to know.
Ron Weifenbach?
Thanks, Mr. Wright, for helping me. When I say a plan, sometimes I feel like someone say, Ron Weifenbach, run the 4-minute mile. I can't run the 4-minute mile. Menalusahan, Mr. Roberts has told us over and over, can't afford a $20,000 fix. When I ask for a plan, that's the point. In the meantime, we're stressing out those people that use a Menalusahan. If my colleagues here want to shut down the Menalusahan, then let's just make that decision. Otherwise, let's have a good plan, solid plan that takes the stress and the monkey off their back. I think Alderman Roberts has been fairly clear that they don't have the ability to fix the roof. So we're basically telling them to do something they can't do. So I guess in the plan, what my suggestion would be is that either we're going to do something if we feel that these are appropriate and they'll fix the roof, or we want to replace the roof. Then we need to make a decision too moving forward, because other than that, as we stand here, they are not able to run the 4-minute mile. No matter what we do, no matter how many times we sit up here and talk about it, the change is not going to happen unless we get a plan in place for them, alleviate the stress from a few. I think there's maybe 300 or 400 elderly citizens there that use it, maybe more. And right now they're not sure. They're kind of in limbo. They're a little bit stressed out. The city does own the building. It is a city asset. So, thank you.
Brad Estes.
Thank you. I'm going to support this motion. I think getting 3 quotes, the hard part is when you're getting 3 quotes to fix something, getting everybody to bid exactly the same thing. But as I look at the picture, once we get the 3 quotes, I think we can better decide whether or not it's wise to fix it or to go the replacement part. But it's a tough deal. I have properties 400 miles away, and I have revolving maintenance people with varying capabilities, and I think you got a facility, the city-owned facility like Menalusahan, where they probably don't even have I think it was said they don't even have a ladder on premise, so even if you did have a maintenance guy you could send on the roof, they don't have a ladder tall enough to get a guy on the roof, and I own a few of these flat roofs, and I tell you, for them to survive, it has to be a sterile environment. And they're not doing anything wrong. They don't know, but you call a contractor to fix something and they replace a part. Well, the part stays on the roof sometimes, and then maybe, you lose a few screws out of the side panel of the rooftop units. Pretty quick, somebody steps on one and that punctures the roof. And maybe we get them a ladder, or maybe once we get this resolved, we figure out how to maybe put it on a deal where once every 6 months a city guy goes and gets on the roof and takes a look at it. But because it has to be a sterile environment, like I've said, and by those pictures you can tell. I mean, it's a salvage yard for used equipment up there, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's just what happens. So I want to get it fixed for them. I don't want any stress on those people, but I want to see what it might cost to fix it before we do the replacement. Thanks.
Okay, John Roberts has 15 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify 2 things. Ron, we have 749 paid members as of 2 weeks ago. So it's a little bit larger, and we've done a pretty good job of bringing more people there. Second, Richie, we would love to actually do what's on this, what the city had brought forward, but what the city brought forward is what's going to cost $20,000 to do. So every penny we have isn't enough money to pay for it. Every penny. So anyway, thank you very much.
That's only $26 per member, just FYI. Okay, the motion is to get the plan. Did we vote on this yet? I can't believe. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Next item. Richie, go ahead with 44, would you?
Thank you, Mayor. Item 44 is a request by Davis Engineering Incorporated for Mick Harris, Elvira Gillis, and Pacifica Lone Pool LLC for a preliminary subdivision for proposed tracks 1, 2, and 3 of the Elvira Gillies subdivision, generally described as being located at 13,860, 13,898, and 13,880 Windmill Road. And I move to approve with stipulations.
Second.
A motion and a second on item 44. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, on to public hearing items, items 45 through 55. There are no speaker requests, so we'll go straight to consent public hearing items 45 through 55. Does anyone want to remove any of these items? We have a light from Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm coming in at the right time after coming in at the wrong time. 55, please pull that one.
Okay, how about a motion to approve all the items except for 55 then?
Second.
Moved and seconded. On to item number 55, which is CCKT Inc., doing business as King of Hearts Casino 2, 2820 West Main. Huh? I'm looking at 55. What are you looking at?
We have the secret agenda.
Yeah, you have the.
Never mind. Okay, all in favor of the consent items, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Item number 55, resolution number 2016-021B, levying assessment for cleanup of miscellaneous property. Would someone like to ask Pauline Sumption a question? Okay, Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We need to remove number 1 for Jordan and Laura Gilbert and number 4 for Elizabeth Moyes because they have come in and paid their assessment.
Okay, we have a motion down here to approve the changes that the finance officer told us about, and we had a second. All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Onto the bill list. Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no changes to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,440,624.67.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Any objections to adjourning? Oh, yes. And we're adjourned.